Discover the heartwarming moment. How a 5-minute encounter changed a paralyzed CEO's life forever. Mark Reynolds never imagined this would be his life. The CEO of a booming tech company, he had it all: ambition, success, and a beautiful family. But one horrific accident shattered everything, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. Now, at 42, sitting alone at a quaint coffee shop in Atlanta, he feels trapped in a body that no longer obeys him. His loving wife, Sarah, and their bright-eyed kids hovered just out of reach, desperate to connect, but Mark pushes them away. Each day feels heavier, filled with restlessness and bitter isolation, as unspoken pain wraps around their home like a thick fog. On this crisp autumn morning, colorful leaves flutter down like confetti, taunting him. Families stroll past, mothers with children laughing joyfully in strollers. Mark's heart aches at the laughter, a symphony he used to take for granted. Something inside him twists painfully as he watches, feeling every heartbeat a reminder of what he has lost. Just then, an elderly man with a soulful gaze interrupts his thoughts. It's Frank, a war veteran selling handmade wooden toys, each toy telling a story of resilience. "Hey there, Sonny," Frank says, offering a small wooden car. "Every scratch tells a story. What is your story?" Mark feels a flicker of warmth, a reprieve from his darkness. Frank's twinkling eyes seem to see right through him. "These toys aren't just playthings, they're reminders. Reminders that life keeps rolling, no matter what." Mark's heart swells. For the first time in what feels like ages, he can almost remember who he was before the accident. The hope that maybe, just maybe, he could find connection again starts to stir. But moments like these pass quickly, and doubts flood in. He is still the man who alienated his family, wrapping himself in bitterness and hurting those who just want to help. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Despite the flicker of hope ignited by Frank, Mark's attempts at reconnecting with Sarah and the kids spiral into misunderstandings. Every effort feels futile, the tension stewing like an unrelenting storm. Sarah's attempts to comfort him go unanswered, and their children, so confused by their daddy's bitterness, retreat into their own silent anguish. Mark sees the hurt in their eyes, but the walls feel too high to scale. Just when despair becomes too heavy to carry, the local school's annual fair arrives, and everything shifts. He discovers Frank's toys have become symbols of hope woven into their community. It strikes him. He has resources, a platform. Maybe he can rally the community, support artisans like Frank, breathe life into connections long pushed aside. But when self-doubt creeps back in, he wrestles with whether he's ready to step away from darkness. How could he lead when he feels so lost himself? Tension mounts, and as he sits at this crossroads, the answers slip further from his grasp. Is he capable of bringing joy back to his family? Can he transform the pain in his heart into purpose? The clock ticks on his chance for redemption, pushing him ever closer to the moment that could either save him or consume him entirely. The school fair was a whirlwind of colors and sounds, laughter echoing under the bright autumn sun. Mark could see tents filled with games, crafts, and families enjoying sweet treats. The excitement buzzed in the air like static electricity, but for Mark, the energy felt like a distant storm. He sat in his wheelchair, on the outskirts of this vibrant world, watching as parents hoisted children onto their shoulders and friends shared cotton candy. As he surveyed the scene, he caught sight of his family by the face-painting booth. Sarah grinned as she pointed to a glittering dragon painted on their daughter Lily's cheek. Meanwhile, their son Ben chased a friend, his laughter ringing out freely. A pain tugged at Mark's heart. He wanted to be there, to share in their joy, but the distance he had built around himself felt insurmountable. Then he remembered Frank's words, "Life keeps rolling." Was it time for him to roll back into his family's life? He took a deep breath, steeling himself against the wave of doubt that threatened to overwhelm him. What if they didn't want him? What if he brought them down instead of lifting them up? But somewhere inside, something shifted. Maybe it was the memory of Frank's warmth or the feeling of hope he felt just moments earlier. With a tentative resolve, Mark wheeled himself toward his family. Each push of the wheels felt like an act of defiance against the darkness. "Mom! Dad!" Lily exclaimed, her eyes lighting up when she saw him approach. Her joy seeped into Mark's heart, and he couldn't help but smile. "Hey, Pumpkin," he said, trying to infuse excitement into his voice. "Look at my dragon." Lily beamed as she turned to show him her cheek, filled with stars and glitter. For a heartbeat, the chaos of the fair faded, and it was just the three of them. Sarah knelt beside Mark, her expression shifting from surprise to warmth. "I'm so glad you came," she whispered, a hint of hope threading through her voice. Mark felt a lump in his throat as a wall within him began to crumble. "I wanted to see you. All of you." The words came out shaky but were sincere. Ben, full of boundless energy, bounced over. "Dad, can we go play the games? You can help me win a stuffed bear." Mark's heart soared and sank simultaneously. "I can try," he replied, the challenge igniting a spark of determination within him. In that moment, their gazes locked, and Mark saw not just the hope in their eyes but an invitation to live again. Together, they moved toward the game stalls, laughter intertwining with the festive music. With every game they played, Mark felt pieces of himself being stitched back together. Sarah stood close by, her hand resting reassuringly on his shoulder. Little moments of connection might just be the key to healing. But just as joy began to weave its way back into Mark's heart, a voice called out from behind him. It was Frank, carrying a small wooden truck, a family of tiny figures nestled beside it. "Just like the toys, Sonny, sometimes you've got to take a small step to see the whole picture." Mark turned, his heart racing. Could Frank's perspective pull him into a deeper connection with his family? Or would it only serve as another reminder of how far they still had to go? In the sea of joy surrounding him, Mark felt a new storm brewing, a mixture of hope, uncertainty, and the promise of a long-lost life waiting to unfold. Would this be the turning point he desperately needed, or would it lead him back to the shadows he was trying so hard to escape? Mark took a breath, the noise of the fair swirling around him like a whirlwind. He felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as he watched Ben dart towards a big game booth, his eyes wide with enthusiasm. It was the kind of excitement that was infectious, and Mark's apprehensions began to fade, replaced by a simmering hope. "Come on, Dad. You've got to try," Ben shouted, practically bouncing on his toes. Mark turned to Sarah, who gave him an encouraging smile, her eyes sparkling like the autumn leaves above them. "Let us do it," Mark said, a hint of a grin tugging at his lips as he rolled to the game booth. The colors of the fair brightened with each turn of his wheels, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a flicker of belonging. They arrived at the giant ring toss game. A big stuffed bear loomed as the grand prize, Ben's heart set on it. The booth attendant flashed a warm smile and handed Mark a few rings. "Just aim for the pegs," she said, her voice cheerful as music blared from nearby tents. Mark took one ring and tossed it. It sailed wide, hitting nothing but the floor. Ben's shoulders slumped for a brief second, but Mark felt a rush of determination. "Let us try again. We've got this." He picked up another ring, focusing on the pegs this time. "Just like in baseball," Sarah encouraged, adding her voice to the mix. Ben nodded, excitement bouncing back into his demeanor. Mark let the ring fly. This time it landed perfectly on one of the pegs. A cheer erupted from Ben. He jumped up and down like a little tornado, his laughter contagious. "Nice job, Dad," Ben exclaimed. The joy in his voice lit a fire in Mark's heart. With every subsequent toss, the atmosphere around them transformed. Mark started to see not just the game but the magic of the moment, the warmth of watching his children light up with anticipation and excitement. The pain he carried melted a little more with each ring that landed. Soon, with a few more successful throws, they had won enough tickets for the giant bear. Ben rushed to grab it, hugging it tightly. "We did it. Thank you, Dad." The thrill in his voice was as rich as the golden autumn sun above. Mark's heart swelled. It was as if a part of him that had been dormant was waking up. He caught Sarah's eyes and felt the depth of her pride and love. There was no more distance between them. At that moment, they were a family again. But just as the joy reached its peak, Mark's gaze fell to the side. There, under a tree, an old friend from high school stood talking to a group, laughter spilling out like music. Mark recognized her immediately. It was Jess, someone he hadn't seen in years, and suddenly, memories flooded back, nights filled with hope, nights where dreams felt lovely and within reach. "Do you remember Jess?" he said to Sarah, pointing her out. "Of course. She was always so kind," Sarah replied, a soft smile crossing her lips. Mark hesitated. Should he roll over, say hello? Fear crept back in, pulling at his chest. Would this moment of happiness shatter if he reached out? Would he want to retreat into shadows again? Ben squeezed his stuffed bear. "Dad, we have to go say hi." But could he truly face Jess after all these years? Would she see what he'd become, or would old wounds just open again? As the laughter from his family filled his ears, Mark realized this was yet another chance and opening into a world he had almost lost. "Okay," he whispered, determined to push past his doubts. He took a deep breath, ready to roll toward Jess, wondering what kind of connection awaited him on the other side of that familiar smile. Mark's heart raced as he rolled closer to Jess, each bump in the pavement sending jolts of nerves through him. He could hear the laughter of his family fading behind him, replaced by the pounding of his own heartbeat. It was the kind of moment that felt monumental, like standing at the edge of a cliff, uncertain whether to leap. Jess hadn't changed much. Her hair was still the same glossy chestnut, her smile as radiant as he remembered. She caught sight of him, and her eyes widened with surprise. "Mark, is that you?" Despite everything, a decade of absence, countless choices that had led them both down different paths, joy sparkled in her voice, pulling Mark toward the warmth of their past. He felt a smile break across his face, almost involuntarily. "Hey, Jess, it's been a long time. And a lot has changed, huh?" she said with light laughter, but there was a hint of concern in her eyes as she took in his wheels. The crowd around them buzzed with activity, the sounds of cheerful music and excited chatter filling the air. But in that moment, it felt like the world narrowed down to just the two of them. Mark could taste the nostalgia and the bittersweet flavor of not knowing what might come next. "Yeah, life has its twists," Mark said, trying to keep it light, but the weight of his struggles pressed against his chest. Jess's smile faltered for a moment, the flicker of understanding passing between them, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken hardships they both faced. "I always admired your strength," she said softly. "I wasn't sure if I'd ever see you again." "Likewise," Mark replied, feeling the sincerity pull at him. "How have you been?" As they exchanged small talk, he felt the barriers he'd built begin to crack. Memories of their shared laughter, late-night study sessions, and carefree hopes flickered in his mind like snapshots in a faded album. Jess's laughter brought him back to simpler days, and for a moment, he wasn't just Mark with a disability, he was Mark with dreams. "You have a beautiful family," Jess said, glancing behind him. "Is that your son? I can see the resemblance." "Yeah, that's Ben. And my wife, Sarah." He watched as Jess's face lit up when she saw them, their shared warmth brightening the distance that had lain between them for years. "Happy family," Jess mused, a touch of wistfulness hidden in her tone. "I'm single, actually, but it's good. Life is still a little adventurous." Mark felt a rush of empathy, knowing the complexities behind that simple statement. In their shared silence, he felt an unspoken kinship. "It takes a lot of courage to keep moving forward," he said, his voice low. Jess nodded, her eyes shimmering with understanding. "It does. I've had my battles too." The laughter and excitement of the fair washed back over them, but Mark realized he wasn't just facing an old friend. He was facing a part of himself he had overlooked for far too long. As he took a step forward into this conversation, it felt like breaking through a barrier that had held him captive, an act of courage he had long since forgotten. "Mark," Ben's voice broke through the bubble. "Can we get some cotton candy?" He turned to see his son bouncing with excitement, clutching that stuffed bear tightly. Mark caught Jess's eyes, the warmth between them crackling with potential. "Yeah, let us go grab some," he said, glancing back at Jess. "It was really great to see you." "Same here," Jess replied, the warmth returning to her smile. "Let us not wait another 10 years, okay?" "Definitely," Mark agreed, surprised by the flood of hope in his heart. As he wheeled away, laughter still echoing, he felt lighter. Maybe facing the past wasn't so frightening after all. Maybe it was just the first step toward rebuilding what he thought was lost forever. But as he picked up the scent of cotton candy, another question loomed in his mind. What more could he uncover if he continued to reach out? What life-changing truths awaited him on the other side of just one more connection? Ben hopped ahead with uncontainable energy, dragging Mark along like a kite tethered to a child's enthusiasm. The colorful lights of the carnival danced around them, casting a cheerful glow. Mark adjusted his grip on the wheels, aware of every turn as his thoughts circled back to Jess. What had she meant by adventure? "Can we get blue cotton candy?" Ben exclaimed, eyes wide as he pointed at the stall ahead, where fluffy clouds of sugar spun in brilliant hues. Of course. Mark couldn't help but smile at his son's joy. It was infectious, a balm that soothed the earlier tension in his chest. He rolled closer to the stall, relishing the cheerful chaos around him, children squealing on rides, the aroma of popcorn wafting through the air, and the sweet notes of a nearby accordion player punctuating the night as they waited in line. Mark noticed his wife, Sarah, glancing over at him with her warm, supportive smile, her eyes sparkling with love and encouragement. He realized how blessed he was to have her by his side. But the thought of Jess lingered like an unexplored path that beckoned him to wander beyond his comfort zone. "What color do you want, Dad?" Ben's voice pulled him from his reverie, eyes bouncing from the myriad of choices. Mark chuckled. "Let us get one pink and one blue, one for each of us." Once they scored the sugary treats, they found a nearby bench where they could sit and enjoy their cotton candy. Ben dove in head first, his face quickly transforming into a sticky masterpiece, joy radiating with every bite. "Hey, buddy, maybe you should slow down a bit," Mark teased, laughter bubbling up. Each giggle from Ben felt like a weight had been lifted, as if some of the heaviness Mark carried was shared in the joy of these small moments. Sarah leaned over, playfully wiping a smudge of pink off Ben's cheek. "You could learn a thing or two about pacing from your old man," she joked, and Mark smiled at the teasing warmth between them. But Jess lingered in his mind, each encounter with her new and yet familiar. He flicked away thoughts of his own challenges to be present with his family. The laughter and the sense the world around him felt vibrant, alive. Just as he was losing himself in this comforting realm, a soft voice called out. "Ben, is that you?" Mark turned to see a girl about Ben's age approaching. She stopped a few feet away, hesitating, then rushed forward. "Ben," she squealed, grabbing his arm excitedly. "It's been forever." "Emily," Ben squeaked, clearly overjoyed at the reunion. Mark's heart swelled watching their innocent friendship bloom, innocence intertwining with their laughter. But it brought an unexpected pang. His thoughts slipped again toward Jess, who had once been such a pivotal part of his own childhood. "Are you coming to the school function next week?" Emily asked, and Mark's mind started to wander. He leaned back on the bench, absorbing the moment between the kids, but also aware of an itch for something deeper. "Yeah, I can't wait," Ben exclaimed, eyes shining brightly. "Great. I'll bring my new pet bunny. You'll love him," Emily replied, bouncing on her toes with excitement, her short mane bobbing with each movement. Mark chuckled softly, realizing how parenthood pushed him to connect not only with his family, but with the network of parents and kids around them. As he savored the sweetness of this fleeting moment, a sudden thought struck him. Could this be an opportunity to reach out to explore a new connection like the one he had with Jess? Who else could he find if he continued seeking these small moments? "Are you okay, Dad?" Ben asked, concern in his little voice, pulling Mark back to the present. "Yeah, buddy. Just thinking." Mark smiled, feeling the warmth encompass him again. As the spark of an idea flickered inside him, he realized the evening held so much more than just sweet treats and laughter. There was potential weaving through it all. Just then, he spotted Jess across the fairground, also laughing with a little girl. His breath hitched. What would happen if their paths crossed again? Would he have the courage to connect deeply this time? Mark's heart raced as he locked eyes with Jess. For a moment, the chaotic carnival faded away. The laughter, the lights, and the smell of popcorn turned into a dull hum as memories surged to the surface. Jess, with her sun-kissed hair and a carefree smile, radiated the same exuberance that had drawn him to her so many years ago. "Dad," Ben's voice cut through the haze. "Can you help me get more cotton candy?" Mark swallowed hard, shaking off the nostalgia, just as Ben's energy tethered him back to reality. "Sure, buddy. Let us go." He pushed off, but his eyes couldn't stray from Jess. She was still there, laugh bubbling over as she lifted the little girl onto her shoulders, her face lighting up as the girl squealed in delight. "Hey, Mark. Long time, no see." Jess's voice was a lilting tone, carried on the breeze as she approached. "Jess," he replied, a warmth flooding through him. Seeing her felt simultaneously thrilling and daunting. The years apart had forged a gap he couldn't ignore. "How have you been?" "Busy but good. This little one loves the carnival," she said, nodding towards the girl. "She's my niece." "What about you?" "Just taking in the sights with my son." He motioned to where Ben was trying to untangle another piece of cotton candy, his face a sugary mess. "Parenting can be an adventure." Jess chuckled softly, her laughter dancing in the air. It pulled Mark in even deeper. "You've always found the adventure in things." He hesitated. "We had such good times. You and me wandering around, finding the thrill in every little thing. I often wonder what." Jess tilted her head, curious and encouraging. "What if we reignited that spark? The adventures, I mean. Not just in childhood, but as adults. Why is it so hard to connect these days?" Jess studied him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "Maybe we need to let go of what holds us back. You're not that kid anymore, Mark. Life has a funny way of changing the rules, but you can still carve out your path." Her words struck a chord. He glanced at Ben, who was now giggling uncontrollably with Emily about something silly. The sweetness of their innocent friendship brought a smile to his face, but it also magnified the thrill of the moment he shared with Jess. "I guess I need to find a little courage then," Mark admitted, feeling a rush of vulnerability. "I don't know how to balance my past with my family, the responsibilities, and everything else weighing on me." Jess looked around, her gaze scanning the carnival lights before landing back on him, almost as if seeking a connection. "Remember, it's okay to reach out, to seek something more. You have everything right here with your family, but that doesn't mean you can't explore what else is out there." Mark nodded slowly, absorbing her words. The weight felt a little lighter, a hint of excitement bloomed in him. "So what is your adventure, Jess? What has got you finding joy out here?" A soft laugh escaped her lips. "I realized I've been taking too many safe roads. I said yes to a traveling gig for the summer. I want to push my boundaries and see where it leads me. It's time to live a little." As if she could sense his hesitance, she reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder briefly as they shared a moment of understanding. Suddenly, a shriek erupted from behind them. Ben and Emily were on the carousel, both giggling loudly, their carousel horse brightly painted in the soft glow of colorful lights. Mark felt a rush of joy each time he looked at them, but now, with Jess by his side, he began to contemplate what it really meant to embrace life fully. Jess waved goodbye, laughter trailing behind her as she turned to rejoin her niece. Mark stood frozen for a moment, awash in the memory of their exchange. The thought of her traveling adventure sparked a flame of inspiration. "Hey, Mark." Ben's call yanked him from deep thoughts. "You coming? We're going to ride the Ferris wheel next." "Yeah, I'm right behind you." As Mark joined his son and Emily, he could still feel the pulse of energy from the brief reunion. There was so much to explore and so many new paths to chase. He savored the sweetness of the cotton candy, a taste that mixed with the rush of possibilities surging through him. What would life hold if he dared to step outside of his comfort zone? But most importantly, what would it mean for Ben if he followed that spark of courage? Just as they headed toward the Ferris wheel, a flicker of doubt whispered in his mind. Should he take a leap into the unknown once more? Would it be worth it? The Ferris wheel loomed ahead, a towering structure against the evening sky. Bright lights twinkled like stars, casting a warm glow that contrasted with the soft dusk settling over the carnival. Mark walked beside Ben and Emily, who were practically bouncing with excitement. "Look, Dad. Look how big it is." Ben gestured wildly, his eyes wide with anticipation. The fear he once harbored about heights seemed forgotten. Mark tried to match his son's enthusiasm, but the conversation with Jess still echoed in his mind. The adventure she was embarking on tugged at something deep within him. As they queued for the ride, noise surged around them again, laughter, screams of delight, and the nostalgic music that seemed to tie them all together in this moment. Mark watched as the colorful gondolas ascended and descended, and he felt a mixture of thrill and unease. What if he really took a risk and stepped into the vast unknown, just like Jess? "Dad, we're next," Ben chirped, dragging Mark out of his reverie. Mark smiled, the excitement bubbling in his chest now. It wasn't he, just his son, who needed adventure. He did too. Once inside the cab of the Ferris wheel, the bar clicked into place, and they began to move upward. Mark glanced at Emily, who was practically vibrating with happiness. He let out a laugh as Ben pointed at the view. Below them, the carnival sprawled like a painted canvas, bright games, joyous crowds, and endless possibilities. The wheel creaked and groaned, and as they reached the top, everything seemed to fall quiet for a moment. Mark's heartbeat steadied. He looked down at the bright lights swirling around, and he felt that spark once more. "Look at that," he exclaimed, trying to draw both kids' attention. "We can see everything from up here." Ben, grinning widely, leaned out of the cabin, delight etched on his face. "This is amazing. We should do this every year." His innocence was contagious, and Mark's heart swelled at the thought. But just then, a thought collided with the joy. What if one day, Ben had his own fears? What if he found himself weighed down by the mundane responsibilities of life? "Dad," Ben said, a tinge of worry crossing his face for a brief second. "What if this is our last carnival together? You know, like when you go away?" Mark forced a smile, but it cracked a little. "Hey, buddy, this isn't the last. We can do this as much as we want. Life is about adventure, remember?" "Yeah," cheered Emily, her eyes sparkling. That simple shared conviction renewed his energy as they began their descent. Mark's mind swirled. Should he reach out to Jess again? Could reconnecting with her ignite something deeper within him? Something he'd long buried under layers of routine? He glanced at Ben and Emily, two bright spirits full of life, and felt an overwhelming urge to share more experiences with them, not just the regular moments of day-to-day living. When they stepped off the Ferris wheel, Ben was still buzzing with excitement. "What's next, Dad?" Mark took a deep breath, suddenly brimming with confidence. "Let us go find that clown you wanted." He felt light, as if something in him had shifted. But as they walked through the carnival, another familiar face caught his eye just beyond a game booth. Jess was laughing again, this time with another group of children. Their eyes met again, and the spark ignited in a way that almost made his heart skip. Was this a chance to forge that connection he yearned for? What would he say, and how would this night change everything? Mark took a step toward her before pausing, ultimately, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside. "Okay, next step. Time to take a leap of faith," he whispered to himself. With quiet resolve, he turned his head toward Ben, ready to make a change that would open doors to new adventures for both of them. But could he summon the courage to embrace this moment? The answer loomed just a breath away, and Mark knew he was on the precipice of something big. What would he do next, before he let this opportunity slip away? Mark felt the laughter of the carnival swirling around him like a warm embrace. Yet as he stood there, staring at Jess, excitement battled with uncertainty in his chest. What if he stepped forward and it all fell apart? What if he didn't say the right thing? His heart raced, but not just from the anticipation of adventure, it was from the fear of opening himself again. "Dad," Ben's voice broke through the haze. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything." Mark didn't have the words yet. He knelt down to meet Ben's gaze, searching for the right answer. "Just thinking about how much fun we're having. Ready to go find that clown?" Ben nodded vigorously, but Mark sensed his son still felt the weight of worry. He squeezed Ben's shoulder. "We're okay, right? Just the three of us tonight, together." "Yeah." Emily bounced on her feet. Then she glanced at Mark with wide eyes. "But how about the clown?" Mark chuckled, refocusing his energy. "The clown it is. Let us go?" As they moved through the carnival, he tried to keep his thoughts at bay. They played games, won silly prizes, and cheered Ben's delight when he knocked down a stack of cans. Laughter filled the air, but still, the pull toward Jess lingered in the back of his mind. He finally turned to his kids. "You two want to go check out some cotton candy while I see someone real quick?" Ben glanced up, a hint of confusion crossing his face. "Who?" "A friend," he said, feeling both the thrill and the weight of the words. "I'll be right back, promise." With a quick thought, he turned to where Jess had been, but now she was mingling near a face-painting booth. The sight of her, slightly illuminated by the fairy lights strung around, stirred something he hadn't tapped into in ages: hope. "Hey," Mark said, approaching her with more confidence than he felt. "It's nice to see you again." Jess's face lit up, her smile brightening the dimming light. "Mark, I wasn't sure if you'd come. How are you?" Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the carnival seemed to fall away. Her genuine curiosity cut through his hesitation. Busy, you know. Just enjoying the carnival with the kids. They love it here. That is awesome, she said, glancing briefly around them. I live for weekends like this, especially with all the kids around. Makes me feel alive. Mark nodded, absorbing the sincerity of her words. I've been thinking a lot about everything lately. You really pushed me to think about taking risks. Good, she said, her brow furrowing slightly in concern. This life is too short to play it safe all the time. He let her words wash over him, recalling their previous conversation and how her spirit had inspired him. I'm trying to change things. Spend more time living instead of just existing. I figured it starts here. Jess smiled, an understanding passing like a song between them. That's a brave decision, Mark. I'm proud of you. Just then, Ben's voice rang out, interrupting their moment. Dad, you're missing the clown. Breaking the connection, Mark turned back toward Ben, who was bouncing in delight, ready to see the spectacle. He looked back at Jess. You should come with us. It's silly, but it's fun, and we could use a third person for some of the games. She hesitated for just a moment, her eyes darting to the jubilant crowd behind him. But then she laughed, the kind of sound that sparked joy. Okay, why not? Let us see what chaos awaits. As they made their way back to the kids, Mark felt an unfamiliar surge of optimism. This night was more than just a carnival. It was a fresh beginning. But as they approached the clown, he wondered what else awaited him on this road he was choosing. Would it just be lighthearted fun, or would it lead to deeper revelations? What awaited him next could change everything. Would he grasp it, or let it slip once more into the night? The clown's bright outfit flared as he jovially juggled colorful balls in the air, a burst of laughter surfacing from the gathered crowd. Mark watched his children, eyes wide with wonder, laughing and clapping with delight. It felt surreal standing at this crossroads, surrounded by joy yet laden with emotions he couldn't shake off. Dad, look, Ben pointed, eyes sparkling as the clown performed a silly trick that made everyone giggle. Mark felt an electric thrill in the atmosphere, charged with promise and a touch of nostalgia. Memories of laughter and gatherings like this danced in his mind, reminding him of days long past. Jess stepped in closer to him, excitement radiating from her. They're having a blast, she said, her eyes shining with a reflection of the carnival lights. Mark couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. It felt good to be here together, sharing not just in the children's joy, but also in a moment that felt undeniably significant. Thank you for joining us, he said, his voice nearly drowned out by the clamor around them. But Jess looked straight at him, and for a heartbeat, he felt a mutual understanding pass between them, something unspoken but profound. Wouldn't he miss it for the world, she replied, her voice warm, kind. But there was a flicker of uncertainty there too, making him wonder what thoughts hid behind her bright smile. As the clown tossed his last ball, the crowd erupted into applause. Emily rushed forward, pulling Ben with her, trying to catch the clown's attention. Mark stayed back for just a moment, feeling the weight of what Jess had said earlier about risks, about living. Could he dare to grab hold of this opportunity stretching out before him? Hey, he said, breaking the quiet that lingered between them as they watched the kids. I know this is spontaneous, but would you like to join us for dinner after this? Just a casual bite. To his surprise, Jess didn't hesitate. I'd love that. Just let me grab my kids first. Mark's heart skipped at her enthusiasm. They found the children, who beamed back at them, blissfully unaware of the deeper conversations swirling above their heads. Are we getting food now? Emily asked, bouncing eagerly. Yep. And Jess is joining us, Mark announced, and he looked at her for confirmation. Her smile lit up her face. Absolutely. Hope you're ready for some food and craziness, Jess said, and the children cheered, their joy infectious. With the chatter and laughter of the carnival as their backdrop, the small group made their way toward the food stands, passing cotton candy booths and popcorn vendors. Mark felt lighter as he walked beside Jess, their conversation flowing naturally. They discussed favorite carnival foods, childhood memories, and the thrill of the rides. But underneath it all, Mark sensed something deeper swirling in the air between them, a connection that felt destined. However, as they reached the food stand, a shadow passed over Jess's face. Mark, can I ask you something? She said, her expression serious. Is everything okay with you? I mean, really? The question hung in the air, an unanticipated vulnerability piercing through the lightness of the moment. Mark opened his mouth to respond, but the truth was tangled inside him. Could he really share his fears, the fragility he felt? Just as he prepared to open up, a loud crash echoed nearby. Drawing their attention away as they turned, a sudden commotion broke out. It was a chaos Mark hadn't foreseen, and in that instant, everything shifted. What was happening? Was this a fun distraction, or a sign that tonight held even more surprises than he'd bargained for? The sounds of the carnival faded into a blur as Mark's heart raced. The commotion drew closer, laughter giving way to confused shouts. The clowns stood frozen, juggling balls dropping to the ground as the crowd turned to see what had caused the uproar. Mark's instincts kicked in. Was everyone safe? Emily clutched Ben's hand tightly, their innocent faces suddenly stricken with uncertainty. Stay close, Mark instructed, wheeling closer to them. The pandemonium kicked up a notch as a group of kids sprinted past them, laughing and shouting, still caught up in their own excitement. A moment later, a couple of vendors joined in the fray, while Jess's eyes darted between Mark and the scene unfolding. Really, Mark, is everything okay? She pressed, the seriousness in her voice cutting through the mayhem. Just as he prepared to reassure her, he realized the chaos pulsating around them mirrored his insides. The truth was, nothing felt okay. Okay, you know what? Enough of this, he said suddenly, the words spilling out, heart pounding behind them. I need to be better. To do better. Not just for my family, but for me, and for us. He glanced at Jess as she studied him, the concern in her brown eyes poignant against the backdrop of the carnival. Before Jess could respond, the clamor reached a fever pitch. Onlookers started to point down one path, laughter tinged with an air of danger. Mark turned his wheelchair slowly to follow their gazes and, to his shock, saw a child tumble off a ride, landing hard on the ground. Panic washed over him, and he squeezed his eyes shut, memories surfacing of moments when he couldn't be there during the times his family needed him the most. What should we do? Ben's voice trembled. Mark's heart sank. How could he act? He felt helpless, yet this moment compassed them to rally together. We need to help. Call for help, Emily shouted, her voice trying to rise above the chaos. That was it. Mark understood. Complexity didn't matter here. It was about creating ripples of kindness, becoming that spark for change. He grabbed his phone and dialed. Emergency services would arrive soon enough, but it was the moment he spent sharing his feelings that mattered, and he pressed the record button to capture this moment of clarity. Maybe for his kids, maybe for himself. Jess stood strong beside him, a pillar of support as they awaited help. Suddenly, a sense of solidarity wrapped around the group, and cheers erupted as bystanders rushed to help the fallen child, who was soon surrounded by medics. Amid this chaos, Mark turned toward Jess, sharing a look of mutual courage mingled with a spark of determination. They would move out of this moment carrying something new, a drive to hold onto the good in life. Thank you for being here in all of this, he said to Jess as the noise began to dissolve. I know it hasn't all been perfect, but I want to change. I want our adventures to matter. Adventures start with honesty, right? She responded with a gentle smile. You've embarked on a bigger journey, Mark. Don't forget that. With the child now cradled in safe hands, the crowd began to thin, laughter cautiously returning as parents reassured their kids. Mark scooped Ben into his lap, and they breathed in the fresh evening air, the sweet smell of fair food washing over them. Can we still have dinner? Ben asked, his earlier fears now melting away. Absolutely. It'll be the best adventure yet. Mark laughed, a stronger heart casting away the weight of his past. Later at the food stand, Mark's laughter rang louder than ever as the four of them enjoyed their meal together. The simple joy of eating cotton candy mixed with shared stories brought familiarity, the connections among them thriving with every bite. Mark watched Jess and felt everything shift together. He sensed that their adventures could continue to bring him closer not only to her, but to himself. As he glanced over at the kids chasing each other under the bright lights of the fairground, something profound settled into his heart. He found himself dreaming of what lay ahead new. Connections, rekindled friendships, and the promise of always choosing joy and community. The journey of healing had truly begun. Here's to taking chances. Mark raised his pretend cup, laughter spilling over them as they cheered. and all the adventures yet to come. In that moment, Mark knew this wasn't just about him, but about every connection and experience they could savor together. It was a beautiful beginning, and the courage building inside him promised that many more would follow. This is just the start. This moment held countless possibilities. So, if you're feeling inspired, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait, not even one more second to share. These stories are for you, and they demand to be spread. Leave a like now to help fuel our journey, and comment your reactions and feelings about Mark's transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this story. Mark's journey can spark hope in others too. Your support makes all the difference.